City Council meeting. Apologize for the late start. We did have a work meeting prior to the regular meeting, and so we've been in the administrative conference room for the last hour talking about a potential transit project. So we have already had an invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll just move right into this meeting. Adam, have there been any changes to the agenda?
There is one that I'll note on the consent calendar when we get to that item number 2, just a minor change.
Okay.
But I'll point that out when we get to that item.
Okay, very good. Council, you might have noticed for the, really this is new for us, but Adam will talk a little bit more about it when we get to the consent calendar, but it combines a number of things so that you can make, unless you want to pull something out, you can make one motion and approve everything on that consent calendar, which speeds up our meetings for things that we typically, as long as we're prepared, we would agree with and approve anyway. Sound good? Okay. Okay, so the first item on the agenda, as you can see, is comments from the public. This is a standard thing that we do on the first Thursday of each month, and that's probably convenient for tonight, because tonight I expect, based on what I see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who've submitted these forms, 6. What we do is we take 15 minutes to discuss, to let people discuss. Whoever fills out a paper, we take 15 minutes to to get your item and come present it to us. So if there are 6 people that want to speak, then you'll each essentially get about 3 minutes. Really, that's going one too many, but we could go, for these 6 people, you could each have 3 minutes to talk about your item. As you noticed on the form, you must be a resident of the city of St. George. Each speaker will be given approximately 3 minutes. Be courteous and show respect, and we'll do the same. And then comments cannot be related to pending issues on the agenda or likely to be on a future agenda. Now, in the case of what I suspect many of you are here for today, there are 2 items based on email that we've been getting from people with the park at the top of the New Tech Ridge, I guess, I'll give it the new name, and also the proposed bicycle skills park over near the Sand Hollow Aquatic Center. How many people are here for one of those 2, or how many are here for the bike at the top of the ridge? Or park, sorry. Okay, the park at the top of the ridge. And then how many are here for the bicycle skills park? Okay. Because Joe, yeah, you're just here to enjoy the good conversation. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So we have 1. Thank you. So so most of you are here for the park at the top of the ridge. Okay, so let me tell you this, because I think it might be helpful. We would like to do this. First of all, as you know, Tech Ridge, we have agreed already, the council's agreed to sell over time and in certain segments 150 acres of city-owned property to Tech Ridge LLC. And the first roughly 10 acres, Sean, Adam, roughly 10 acres, we've already approved some zoning, and they're even going through the first building that will probably be breaking ground within the next 2 months, I would say, roughly. Sound about right, Adam? So we're moving along in that way, and as those of you that are here for this item know, that's going to be a fundamental change for the Ridge. The current park is right at the entrance of that new part of our community, and so it has been expressed by the developers that they would really need to have that piece of property to help frame and be a part of what we hope will be a very desirable and appropriate entrance for that kind of a community. So what they have also agreed to do, and we've gotten their specific agreement today, is they have agreed to essentially replace that park on the other side of the, are those townhomes or apartments? Townhomes that are existing right there just across the little street from the park. They've agreed to do that and at least replace what is there, at least, if not a little bit more. And that they would do that before they took down the existing park. And we feel like that is appropriate, but what we'd like to do, and we also like that because it would be adjacent, and I would say we ought to make sure that it connects to the Temple Quarry trailhead park, if you will, so that we could, and it's also, there's not a road that you've got to cross, especially because there will be, as we've mentioned in some of our emails to you, there will be approximately 50 acres of park or paved bike path on the top of the ridge throughout this 150-acre project. So I think it's going to be a wonderful place, a wonderful trade-up, if you will, but we recognize that for those who are living in the existing homes and townhomes, as well as for some of those, frankly, who will soon be your new neighbors, that they might like to have a park right there. So the property owner has agreed to do that. And so he would probably, if this were to happen, if we made the decision to either sell or make as part of the project that current park, it's going to be replaced before it's torn down. So I wanted to state that up front so you knew. And what I would also like to do, regardless of what happens tonight, I would like to have a neighborhood meeting at the place that works best for you, whether it's here or whether it's up somewhere on the ridge, whatever you'd like to do, within the next 2 weeks, so that we could show you more. And it would also, if we do that in the next, week or so, week, 10 days, hopefully we could have even a little bit, at least some concepts from the owner and from our parks people that could at least give you some ideas of what this might look like. Obviously, it's not going to be detailed renderings, but at least it could show you what the kind of tentative plans are. And again, I would suggest, and I think the council would agree, that we will not allow them to tear down, as I've said several times, the existing park until a new one, at least the same, if not a little better, is created. So I wanted to say that up front because that might make a difference in some of the comments that might be made, and it might help those of you that can't stay until we get to that agenda item. Yes, we've got a long agenda. And so we've got people that have also come for other items. So yes, we'll just go in the order that we've got them today. So for those who have filled out a form, I'm just gonna look at them here. Black Hill. Let
me just make a comment while you're looking there,
Okay.
Mayor. I think if you can picture where they're talking about a new park, it's going to be every bit as close as the one that's currently there. You know, the row of townhomes on the west side, it will be right to the west of that. So most of your people are going to live closer to that than they are where you are at on the corner, I think.
Well, and there will be more park right to the south of the restaurant, Cliffside, and it will also be a trailhead for the trail that will go all the way around the bluff. That is the plan. That's what we've bought off on. Some of that is going to be done sooner than others. This is as you all know, and some of you stated wisely in your emails, we don't want to wait 10 or 15 years to have, our park. That's fair. There will be a park closer, than clear down to the south end, but it would still be across what will become a busier road. So I think what Joe's just said and what I've said before, the current plan for this, just west of the townhomes, kind of a park, I think would be a good option, personally. But it is a thing, this isn't just about putting a sign up for Tech Ridge. They really need that parcel to be able to make everything on the north end work. So I'm just being straight with you on that. But I think we could have done our homework better in terms of letting you know what we've been talking about for about a year with these developers in terms of the overall project. It's a lot, and we realize people don't always read the minutes of our meeting, and you don't come to our meetings unless you know that it's got a direct impact on you. So we realize that, and that's why we would like to do a neighborhood meeting with you, you know, and I guess we need to figure out the best place. I guess I'd probably suggest we do it here, and we will get the word out to you on a date and time, and we'll try to do it in a way that could work for the most people. In other words, you know, a little later like this in the day or early evening, something like that, within the next 10 days. Adam?
Mayor, I would add, you know, the standard to which we're developing a lot of our parks today, the new facilities, they are a significant step above the existing park. Now, the park that's there, as you're all aware, or maybe perhaps some in attendance might not be, but historically, you know, that park had some service, an Eagle Scout project, I believe, that helped make some of the improvements up there. So there is some, you know, some sentimental feeling there. We think, as we've discussed this internally, there are some real opportunities as we look at the new standard of parks that we're developing. Now, we're not talking about Thunder Junction up on top of the ridge. I wouldn't want anybody to walk away with that, but just as far as a basic park, the type of equipment that can really take that park to a higher standard than what it is right now, we see that as an opportunity, and the neighborhood meeting that we've kind of discussed would really give a great opportunity for staff and residents to sit down, brainstorm some ideas on what types of, you know, facilities that they might like to see, you know, what age group of equipment, all those kinds of things. That would be a good opportunity to just talk and plan, and then we can figure out how that park takes shape.
Right.
So we see that as an opportunity for some collaboration.
I agree, Adam, and I think that it's we're not in a hurry necessarily to do that, you know, and what we are in needing to at least get to soon, whether it's tonight or sometime soon, is to help the developers understand what property is available to them. So we can work through, and I think you're exactly right, the potential for what that park looks and feels like. So that said, we are happy to hear from the five who've asked to speak on this item in this order. Rick Walker, I may say it wrong, Riker, Luce? Luce? I was trying to be too cool, huh? And Amy? Luce? Okay. And Tad Derrick and Emily Murphy. So, and I'll remind you of the order. So, Rick, if you want to come up. Again, we're going to time you just because we do have a long agenda, but 3 minutes per person, and you're welcome to come to the podium right here. You're going to have to pull that up.
Yeah. There we go.
Thanks.
I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to listen to us. We're here because we're concerned about the park going away, obviously. This is the first I've heard about it with the zoning changes. We got all kinds of letters in the mail about zoning changes and opportunities to speak on that. The first time I heard about it was on social media. So it's a little frustrating to not know what the plan is. And we may all be very happy with a new park in a different location. My grandfather is the one that actually donated the land that the park's on now to be the park. And sorry, the idea of just taking that away from our kids is frustrating. So, sorry, get emotional. So I would love it if maybe you could postpone the vote to actually commit to giving them the property. If you could do a neighborhood meeting and we could hear out what the plan would be so that we could be on board and the neighborhood feels that we're listened to. Because the Tech Ridge, I'm for it. I'm grateful to see improvements and companies coming to St. George. But that whole ridge is really going to have a huge effect on all of us who live up there. Traffic, property values. It may be good, it may be bad.
It'll be good.
Well, I hope so. And I was there for the conference or the talk you gave at the Zonos announcement up at Tech Ridge. It's a beautiful building. And so I appreciate you, looking out for us. We do feel like you have our best interests at heart, where this was not something that we knew about. It felt like perhaps it was backdoor rather than something where we got the opportunity to have buy-in and our voices heard. So that's
Yeah.
all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No, and we do appreciate it. I think we should have done the neighborhood meeting first as well. We typically do that when we're planning parks. This is just a little bit of a different thing and a bit of a new thing in a way because of how it was done. So we apologize for that.
And Mayor, I'll offer that as an oversight on staff's part. I think we could have done better, and we'll pay attention to that.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam. Hi. Are you Riker? Welcome to City Council meeting, Riker.
My name is Riker Lewis. My family loves the park. We go to the park almost every night. We get our energy out. My dog loves to get her energy out. My mom and dad love the park too. We play all sorts of the games at the park, like bocce ball, football, foursquare, tag, soccer, and climb trees. I'm sure all of us would be a little less active without the park. I would feel so sad if the park got taken down. So please make sure to build a park first as promised.
Thank you, Riker. Good job. Great job. Now, is this Amy? Proud mother? Excellent. Someday I expect Riker to be sitting up here somewhere. All right, Riker? All right.
Now we'll see if I can get through it after that. My name's Amy Luce. I thank you for the consideration that you've given to this subject about the Black Hills Park. To some of you, it may just be an acre of land, but to us, it's more than a park. It is like our neighborhood backyard. It's an extension of our homes. Many of us don't have much of a yard, and this gives us that. We gather as families, friends, and neighbors often at this park, have picnics, birthday parties, soccer practice, holiday gatherings. My family uses this park on a daily basis, weather permitting. It's a big reason why we chose our house, and we would be devastated to see it turned to a concrete entrance without something to replace it. So please follow through with what has been discussed and build a new park first. I also, as with Mr. Walker, would request that we postpone the vote until we can gather a little bit more information and have the neighborhood meeting. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate that. Tad.
Well, I'd first like to congratulate the council on the great work you're doing managing the fastest growing city in the nation. That's got to be a giant job, and thank you for your good work on that. However, as we're having that great growth, those of us that live here now are concerned about being able to maintain our quality of life as the growth goes forward. We think Tech Ridge is going to be a great addition to the city. We're excited about the addition of parks and trails up there. We can think of some beautiful overlooks both directions. It's just marvelous. But we know that takes time. And we hope that while that is going forward, we won't lose the little park that we have now. The mayor's addressed the issue of maybe just relocating it, so to speak, and that may be a solution, and we look forward to having that neighborhood dialogue with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tad. And Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Murphy. I have a double interest in that not only am I a resident that lives up there, but I'm also a realtor, and I have a concern. And I think that more than anything, the delay of the vote should be so that we could view what this approach is going to look like. Because yes, I'm grateful that you're going to relocate the park, and I think that's awesome, and I want the green space up there. But even more than that, I think there needs to be separation between the residential and Tech Ridge. What's going to happen there? I can tell you from experience with driving buyers around the city that they are worried about buying a home that's near commerce. They want to, You know, the first question they ask when we go into a neighborhood, well, how close is the Walmart? How close is the Walgreens? They want to know. And if they're going to drive up that hill and turn into our neighborhood and they can't tell if they're turning into Tech Ridge or a neighborhood, that's going to affect our home values. That's going to tell them, you know, they're going to say to their agent, you know what, never mind, we don't want to be this close, so we don't want to look up there. So I think we need to delay the vote so that we can see a rendering of what that's going to look like. Because right now, I understand you want to move the park and give them that, but that park is the barrier, the difference that shows between you go into a residential neighborhood where you see the park and you see houses and you see it's warm and fuzzy for families, and the Tech Ridge is not going to be that way. And so I want to see what it's going to look like, and I think that that's a fair request that we're all kind of wondering about. Great that you're going to replace the park. I am concerned that, are we going to do away with fully mature trees, and are we going to, you know, lose? I wish it didn't have to be relocated, but if it's going to be, I want to see what it is, and I would hope that you would give us a little bit more input on that before you make that decision.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Just, I will say this, this will give us a chance when we have the neighborhood meeting with you all and many others, I hope, that can attend. It will give us a chance to show you, at least conceptually, what the developers are planning for the entire ridge, knowing that it's conceptual, but it'll give you a good feel for it. And it's important probably that you know that there will be a lot of residential up there. It'll be different residential. It'll be mixed use residential, a lot of it, where you might have a retail shop on the ground floor and some apartments, condos, townhomes above that. I don't anticipate anyway, based on what's been presented to us, having single family R110 kinds of homes up there. But the good news about that is the developers and the city will be very involved with all of that through a master development, a development agreement. We will get a chance to make sure that it's done well, and they'll want it to be done well because they're wanting people to live, work, and play there. And so it's got to be conducive for them to be successful, as well as for you to hopefully continue to enjoy living there. It'll be different, as Derek said, it'll be different for sure. It'll be busier, but with another road off the south end somewhere, that's going to help a lot. And that's in the near, we hope, future. We've asked for that to be one of the first things done. So we can tell you more of that as we get into this neighborhood meeting. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that input. You're welcome to, of course, stay as long as you want in the meeting. Next one, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, is it Diane Braithwaite on the bike park? Oh, I'm talking about the bike park on Lava Flow. Correct. That's next. In terms of, this is all public comment. See, neither of these, just so you understand, I didn't say this up front, neither of these require what's called a public hearing, but this is a public meeting. And so you're always welcome to come to a public meeting, and it's kind of the mayor's call as to whether we allow comments on some things. But in this case, this is our public comment period, and that's why this works. Normally, we probably wouldn't do it if it was an item that required a public hearing and was maybe going to be next week or something. We would want to do it the next week during that public comment. This is a little different because these items don't actually require public comment. We're just choosing to take it anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm a lot shorter than the last guy. Was my understanding, since we were not allowed to speak at the... Oh, okay. How's this?
Perfect.
It was my understanding that we would not be allowed to speak at this, so I didn't come prepared.
That's all right.
So I have lived on Lava Flow for 11 years, and I'm wondering if any of you have ever been there. Have you ever been on that street?
Of course, yeah. I think
Okay.
all of us have.
So we have a library, we have a school, we have
2 schools.
middle school, high school, we have a daycare, we have a swimming pool. We have suntan buses. We have lots of school buses, and a lot of various races, marathons, triathlons. There's hardly ever a time that we do not have some kind of event on our street. I'm not against this park at all. I actually ride my bike every day for 10 miles. I love biking. I'm against the venue you've chosen because we already have way too much traffic. Sometimes I wait 10 minutes to get out of my driveway, which isn't a long time. But you add this bike park, I can't even imagine what additional traffic we're going to have. We're going to have a lot of dust, and we hear that it's going to be landscaped. But I've heard for years about improvements on the bike trail and other things down in the wash, and they never happen. Also, this is a floodplain. I get a letter every year from St. George advising me to buy flood insurance. So are we going to spend all this money to have it washed away one day? Because I have seen this little tiny 4-foot stream turn into a raging river in the matter of 20 minutes. So I'm just wondering if this has been thought through carefully. So don't think that any of us are against a bike park. It's just we think you've chosen the wrong venue. And also, I would like one last thing. Are you changing our zoning?
No.
So what is open space? And why is this bike park allowed in a residential subdivision?
Adam, do you want to comment on that?
I can. I see John Willis ready to come step up
Good.
to the microphone.
John's our
John's our planning expert.
so.
So there's two zones in this area. The first is the open space. The open space does permit for parks and recreation in an open space zone. The second portion of it, which is a majority of where the park space will be, or the bicycle skills park, is R110. R110 does permit for a bicycle skills park. It's a recreation facility. It is a conditional use permit, which means it's a permitted use where the council can look and determine whether or not there's some specific impacts that require mitigation. But in either one of those zones, this is essentially a permitted use.
So then actually we can have other things come into our backyards as well as this bike thing?
Well, technically, if it's R110, you could have
houses.
residential
Yeah, houses,
homes.
Wow,
homes, which would increase traffic too.
wow. We got plenty of that.
Thank you.
Just comment, Mayor, it's my understanding that the foliage and plants that are presently there will not be removed, that they're going to work around them and design within them. So a lot of the foliage and plants that you're now seeing will still be there.
There will be a presentation on it as we get to that item on the agenda where we will, on that item, we'll be able to show you pretty specifically what is proposed in terms of the bike park. One of the things is, we can get to this later in more detail, but you know, we don't have too many parcels with 80 acres where we can do a bicycle skills park, so within the city. And so that's one of the things that led us to that area. But there will be a nice presentation where we can lay that out, show you where the parking areas would be. A lot of the everything that's been done really in the plans for that have been done, of course, in mind with, as you said, Ms. Braithwaite, with the flood potential in that area. So we're not building right in the center, for example. We want to protect our investment. So, okay, so that's the end of that portion. Adam, I'll turn it to you to walk us through the rest of the agenda.
Let's do that. So item number 2 is the consent calendar, and as was mentioned previously, this consolidates items 2A through 2G into a single motion. So the first thing we would like to point out is item 2D, a very minor change. 2D is a consider award of bid to Western Rock Products. Different company. Western Rock Products is the one that had the low bid that staff recommends approval for. Are there any of these items that the council would like to pull out and discuss separately? If not, then staff would recommend a motion to approve all of these items as presented on the consent calendar in a single motion. And that would take care of each item.
Items 2A through 2E?
2A through 2G.
G.
Yep.
Okay, let me just,
Okay.
do a quick scan.
And these are the items that typically, well, historically, we've seen that these are housekeeping items, administrative, very little discretion on these, I would say.
Adam, on that D, you have two items within D itself. One to do with sidewalk, one to do with rental parking space.
It's the same project.
Same
It's all
project,
considered in the same project. That's correct.
Any other questions, or I guess I'd say any that you want to pull out of the consent calendar? This is, it's important, of course, that that we look at these ahead of time so that if we do have questions, we can pull them out and consider them separately. But if there are none that you want to pull out, I would consider a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar as they've been presented.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Joe and a second by Michelle to approve the items 2A through 2G, I believe it is, yes, on the consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Item 3 is consideration of the annual action plan for our community development block grant. We'll have Matt Liu. Is Matt here? No?
He was.
I believe Mr. Liu stepped out to speak with the neighborhood residents there.
Okay.
Great.
He was going to introduce me, so I'll do that in the
Let's do it.
interest of time. My name is Eric Chatham, lead partner with Civitas Consulting. We've been with the city for several years now, assisting with the management of the HUD grant program, the Community Development Block Grant Program. What we're presenting this evening is the annual action plan, which is essentially the budget for the grant, which will start on July 1, so the 2018 program year. City's receiving a larger allocation than we've ever received before. It's about a $50,000 increase from last year. Takes us to $592,000. We anticipate throughout the program year an additional $60,000 of program income. That's repayment from the down payment assistance program that the city had for many, many years. We actually just received 2 repayments today. So when folks sell their house where they were assisted with those down payment assistance funds, they repaid the assistance. So we average between $50,000 and $75,000 a year in repayments. So it's a conservative estimate there. Anticipating then about a $650,000 budget for the 2018 program year. In February, just here in council chambers, we hosted a funding workshop where outside nonprofit agencies were able to hear about the funding cycle, and then applications were due in March. Staff, along with Civitas, have reviewed those applications for eligibility, and you'll see momentarily the recommendations for funding. The public comment period for this action plan started on April 16th, will run through May 16th, and then, of course, tonight we're hosting a public hearing as well. This plan is part of the HUD 5-year plan, which is called a consolidated plan, and just a quick summary of the priority needs that we identified as part of that 5-year plan. As a side note, within the next year, we'll be updating this plan, the consolidated plan, and so I'll be back next spring to present the new 5-year plan to you. So our goals for this program year, again, provide services and housing for special needs, expansion of and improvement of public infrastructure and public facilities, and then also to increase the capacity of area service providers, our nonprofit partners here in the city. Here's the project budget. So for administration, just over $100,000 of the program. That's going to include this year 2 HUD required plans, a big fair housing study that we'll do in the fall, and then again, as I mentioned, the 5-year consolidated plan, which we'll do next spring. And those require a variety of stakeholder meetings and community event type meetings. So we'll be hosting those and making those available to the community throughout the next 12 months. Public facilities and infrastructure is the bulk of the funds, $455,000, and then public services at $89,000. Again, those are our nonprofit partners. And the next slide, I'll break out the public facilities and infrastructure. So some of our nonprofit partners this year actually applied for funds to help improve their facility so that they can offer new or expand their services. And you see there, there's Dove Center, SwitchPoint, Turn Community Services, all applied. Those are outside agencies, and we'll be assisting them with your approval to expand their facilities or make improvements to their facilities. And there's an additional $30,000 to cover any additional balance that might carry over for the cast iron pipe replacement. We believe we have enough budget in the current program year, but should we exceed that budget, we basically have a change order, basically reserve here. This leaves about $280,000. Staff is currently working with Public Works to identify an infrastructure improvement like the cast iron pipe for this program year. So there's 4 or 5 that are being vetted, and we'll be back to you for approval. The outside agencies, these are some that you should probably be familiar with from the last few years. It's the typical same agencies that we work with. Memory Matters, United Way, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Family Support Center, and again, SwitchPoint. With your approval this evening, we will submit the plan to HUD for approval at the end of the public comment period, which will be May 16th. And at this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So you don't have to identify those other public infrastructure monies before you submit to HUD, or you do?
No, we don't. What we will have to do once the project is identified, we will have to do what's called a request for release of funds. So we'll do our due diligence, like environmental review and the engineer type stuff, the budget, specific details of the scope of the project. We actually post that here for public comment. That's usually on the bulletin board out front. And then it goes to HUD, and they approve at that time specific release for that major infrastructure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Eric,
Yes,
at
sir.
the beginning of the year, or right after the new administration in Washington took place, there was some mention that we didn't know the status of this HUD or CDC program, how long it would continue. I understand that that's been taken off the table, and that we can expect that this program will continue to run for what? How?
Yes, sir. I mean, it has to be approved every year
Yeah, it's
as
annual
part of the
approval.
budget. So every year it's susceptible to being eliminated. And in the president's proposed budget for 19, it's actually eliminated. But it's such a small, I mean, it's a sliver of the federal budget. Even though it winds up being substantial money for local communities, it's so small that at the end of every year, the presidents recommend eliminating it, and then political bargaining, and it winds up
Right.
coming back. So we actually saw, president said 0, and we actually got an 8% increase. And another program, the home program, which is only for housing, same thing. It was scheduled for complete zeroed out, and it got a 30% increase. So
That's
I'm not too worried that it's going away. No, sir.
great. That's good news for
Yes,
the
sir.
citizens here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And as the city continues to grow, this grant is partially based on population. So as you grow every year, the formula, we will continue to see a slight increase just based on population.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And I need to open a public hearing for this, correct, Sean and Adam? So we'll do that at this time. We'll open the public hearing for anyone who's come to provide input or ask any questions regarding the 2018-2019 action plan for the Community Development Block Grant. We call it the CDBG program. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak to that? It's a great opportunity for us to, through these federal funds, be able to help in very meaningful ways, both in terms of facilities, infrastructure, and operations, I guess I would call it. Some of our organizations, it's all to help people in need. So I will close the public hearing then and come back to you, council, for your consideration. Ready for a motion if you are, unless you have other questions.
Mayor, on behalf of the SwitchPoint Board, we're very appreciative of the funds that do come from this CDBG block grant. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the 2018 CDBG Annual Action Plan and proposed budget review.
Second.
We have a motion by Jimmy with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Sean, this doesn't say it's a resolution. Okay. All in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Thank
you
you.
too.
Next up, items 4 through 8 are land use items. We're going to have John present these to us.
Next item on the agenda, item number 4, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential and open space to commercial on approximately .50 acres located at approximately 850 North Valley View Drive. So this is a general plan amendment, so we're looking to see or to consider whether commercial makes sense at this specific location. Here's the zoning map. Right now it's zoned commercial. You can see it's on near the intersection of Sunset and Valley View. It's this little portion right here that they're requesting a general plan commercial. Here's the current general plan. Again, you have commercial at the intersection. What they're requesting is to increase this commercial to the toe of the slope here, and so it'd bring in about a half acre at this location. Here's the general plan amendment that was provided by the applicants. Commercial land use designation supports C1, C2, C3, C4, and planned development residential. Again, it's about a half acre expansion of the existing bubble. There is an existing commercial Chevron or not service station, but a gas station here. It would be this portion here. Planning Commission reviewed it, took public hearing on this item, and recommend approval.
Questions of John, council?
John, this is an area of piece of property that's come before us over the years for a commercial use. This kind of takes that away, and it'll only be this small portion that's involved, and the rest will be open space from this point on.
I'm not sure if the rest of it will be open space. The applicant has purchased this property. This came before the council once before for, I believe, is medium-high density residential. The applicant is only requesting a commercial on this portion, which would leave the remaining portion of it low-density residential and PO, professional office, near the church. A lot of this portion, as the council may remember, is hillside, and so development on this, the rest of this parcel would be limited by the hillside ordinance.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then I will open the public hearing for this item, number 4 on our agenda, for anyone who may have come to express their opinion or ask questions on this item. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action or any discussion you want to have first.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential to open space commercial on the half acre located at approximately 850 North Valley View Drive.
Second.
Motion by Ed with the second by Jimmy. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Ed this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Next item on the agenda, item number 5, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential to commercial on 2.31 acres located at the southeast corner of Dixie Drive and 600 West. So this is the location of the site. It's 600 West is located here. Here's Dixie Drive and Tonnequin. So it's a piece of property that's right between Dixie Drive and Tonnequin. Here's the current general plan. The current general plan has 2 designations on this property. On the south side is already land use designation as commercial. And what the applicant is requesting is to increase this commercial to include the portion that is further north, which would take in this property here. The zoning is R110. This is a little bit better of a graphic showing the property. This is what the applicant provided. Again, this is the commercial. This hatched area is what they're proposing to be commercial. Commercial, again, is all the commercial zoning, including the PD commercial, could be applied for. This is on an intersection of a busy road. It's kind of a narrow property. This is another exhibit that was provided. Here's a couple pictures. And so there's some residential that sits up a little bit higher in elevation. It's a lower portion here right at this intersection of 600 West and Dixie Drive. Here's a couple other pictures. This is looking south down 600 West. It's kind of this property located right here. So the Planning Commission, they listened and took public comment on this particular item, and they recommended approval for this proposed general plan amendment. And that concludes staff's presentation on this item.
Questions, council, for John, first of all? Any comments, Adam?
Just as you open the public hearing, I was going to point out that there was a hard copy of a comment that was received from a resident.
Very good. Y'all see that, council? Okay, then I will open the public hearing at this time for any who may have come to offer input on this item, number 5 on our agenda today. Yes, sir. Just state your name for the record.
Right, my name is Chris Fee. I live on Lava Point Drive right behind this. I attended the Planning Commission meeting in which several neighbors came out in opposition to this. We don't want more business right into our neighborhood. We seem to be totally ignored by the Planning Commission. I'm not going to speak to their motives, although I certainly suspect that, but they seem to totally ignore us. They went so far, one of them went so far as to say, oh, if you have more businesses in your neighborhood, that will reduce the traffic there. And I thought they were getting totally ridiculous at that point. And neighbors spoke out against this. They probably not come tonight because they've given up on this. We just don't need more business right in our neighborhood. If they want to make a change, if they think that's too small to put some housing in there, then give up the business thing they have there and turn the whole thing into residential. They could put a nice little apartment building in there or something of that nature. The traffic problem will be, a nuisance to the neighborhood, and several neighbors have spoken up in opposition to that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Please come forward.
My name is Rod Price, and you showed my house there right overlooking that property a couple times in those slides. I'm also on the board for the HOA in that Mesa Palms, and I agree with him. In the last meeting, all of us spoke against it, but they didn't seem to be listening to anything we had to say. I live right there, and you can't, since they've exited all the traffic out on Dixie Drive from the freeway there, you can't leave your windows open there. In the day at all, it is so noisy, and there is so much traffic that I can't see them putting any kind of heavy commercial buildings in there and increasing the traffic any more than it is already. You get backed up clear out beyond the turnabout that they put in there in the mornings and in the afternoons. It's just the traffic is excessively noisy. And so I'm just hoping that you'll consider, I don't know what you have to consider here. We were told at the last meeting they may consider the type of commercial they put in there.
Not yet, because this is the general plan.
Okay.
So we can't get into a lot of detail. You're just basically saying this general area, the potential is to change it to, commercial, and then if the owner wanted to come back and zone it specifically, that's when they talk about uses and so forth, which type of commercial.
See, and I kind of feel like we were led to believe that that would be discussed here at this meeting, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, not yet. We're considering the same exact thing that the Planning Commission was, and they're a recommending body, and then this group is the deciding body, if you will.
Well, we get a lot of traffic there now. I mean, it's got to be almost as busy as a freeway coming down
Well,
Dixie there.
yeah, you do, and it was planned that way. That's why the roads are 5-lane roads on either side of you. Tonnequint and Dixie Drive were designed to be busy roads. They'll get busier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that when I bought 10 years ago, but,
Yeah.
and I love where I live, but, I can't see how they can, I mean, honestly, ask us to do, have any more traffic and chaos down there, but that's my opinion. But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Other comments?
My name is Sue Wilson, and I live in Southgate Hills. And the whole neighborhood's pretty wound up about this because of the fact that it's going to be extremely hard for anything that goes in there to make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn at certain parts. I hope that if you rezone this, you'll really think through how would traffic actually flow. And as I stated before, there are times of day where that roundabout it's backed clear up past the entrance to Mesa Palms because of the intermediate school, and then you're going to eventually have an elementary school too up in that area. So I just hope that you'll all go visit the site and take time to really look at how would traffic actually get on and off of that piece of property. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I drive through it every day, so I know what you're saying. One thing we have to kind of determine, people do have a right to utilize their property, and so it is our job to figure out how best to make that work within very much the parameters that you're all saying. So, any other comments from the public on this item?
Mayor, I would just add a clarification in regards to that last comment about zoning. This is not a zoning decision at this time.
Correct.
The zoning would remain R110, single family. If somebody wanted to actually rezone it so they could do commercial, they're going to have to come in with with their detailed plans about what the use is, what type of traffic it generates, is it an appropriate use? So that decision is not the one that's being made tonight.
That's correct. That's when we get into where would the entrances and exits be and how the traffic would work and so forth. But okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and come back to you, council, for any discussion.
I would
before a
just
motion.
like to ask John, it says a portion of the adjacent property is already zoned commercial. How big a piece is that? That goes all the way up, and so
it's not zoned. The general plan land use shows it as commercial. And this is roughly an acre, maybe closer to 3/4 of an acre. And, general plan is approximate. So, it's probably between 3/4 to an acre of property. Again, it's just land use designation. The zoning, as city manager mentioned, is R110.
That's right at the roundabout, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
And I believe that is owned by a different party.
This portion right here is owned by a different party.
Very good.
thank you.
So yeah, what you're seeing, even though it seems like a very specific, shape, it's a general thing, as John just mentioned. It's not zoning yet. Other comments, questions for staff? Motion if you're inclined.
I see what they're saying here is that it's not really conducive to residential, but I'm not so sure it's very conducive. It's just a weird little intersection right there. I'm a little concerned about how you make something work in there and what kind of a mess it could make out of that.
Now, I guess, again, it's not zoned this way, but they could request a more dense residential zone as well. And so you have to consider, is that good? Would you prefer that? I mean, not that it's your choice or mine, but, you know, there are different, they could come in and go for several different types of zone changes. And they wouldn't do R110, I don't think. We've seen this in other areas kind of like this, where it's a little tight, and they might say, well, we could go up, you know, and do several stories and get some density in there. So again, that would also take a change of the general plan, but
That's kind of the trend out there because some of the soil issues, you know, they have to almost do higher density to make it worthwhile. But that being said, we don't know what's being proposed here yet, so I guess that's the only way we're going to know is if it comes in for a zone change.
really it's, you know, council, what's before you is to, you know, determine whether you want to change the general plan today or not.
I'm going to make a motion to change the general plan from low-density residential to commercial on 2.31 acres.
We have a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe to change the general plan as has been described from low-density residential and open space to commercial on, low-density residential to commercial, yes, on 2.31 acres at this location, Dixie Drive and 600 West. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, this is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote. All in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
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 Nay.
Oh.
Guess where you fit in.
Well, I'm going to vote aye. So the motion carries. I believe that, frankly, you're probably going to be better off if something came back as office, for example. You may like those kinds of neighbors more than you might like a more dense, potentially residential situation. I live not too far from your area, too. It's just my feeling. Okay, thank you. We'll go on to item 6.
That being said, there will, if anything like that were to happen, there'd still require a zone change, just so you neighbors understand that. It would require a zone change, and that'll come back before us, and there'll be more notices and things like that. So
Correct.
just know that.
Has to go back through Planning Commission. Thank you, John.
Okay. Next item, it's item number 6, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential on 15 acres, generally located north of Curly Hollow Drive, east of Tonnequint Intermediate School. So this is the subject property. Tonnequint Drive is located here. This is Curly Hollow. And this is the Tonnequint Intermediate School. And so it's this 15 acres located here. The current zoning on the property is R18, which is a residential zone. The current general plan land use designation on this property is low density residential, which is 0 to 4 acres. At a low density residential, you could expect between 15 to 60 units on this property. And this is the exhibit that's provided by the applicants. They're requesting, again, medium density residential. Medium density, as far as units go, would be probably between 75 to 135 units. It could accommodate single family R1 7, R1 8, multifamily R2 would be the most dense multifamily, and they could also request a PDR on this particular site, and their density limitations would be the general plan, which is 5 to 9 units an acre. The Planning Commission, they took a public hearing on this item, and they discussed it for some time, and they recommended approval 4-1 on this particular item. Here's a couple pictures of the property. And that concludes staff's presentation on this application. If the City Council has any questions for staff.
John, I remember when that was at Planning Commission. Seemed like there's probably some challenges out there that it couldn't all be developed. Is that a fair statement?
Like Hillside?
Well, that and maybe Clay.
Yeah, I think in this area, there tends to be a lot of soils issues. I don't know whether or not we've seen a study on this specific site, but I know that the applicant did express some concerns with soils.
Well, you can develop it, right? I mean, we just approved a few weeks ago
Right here.
right there, that 10-acre parcel. I believe it's a final plat. It's clay. They'll over-exit, or you build on piers.
Yeah.
The hospital's built on piers.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of this area over here has soil issues, and with the construction methods, they've been able to develop it.
So we might expect townhomes on a piece of property like this.
It depends on what the land use designation is at MDR. It could be everything. The Joshua's are MDR, and so it could be a variety of different types. You can expect something in that range.
Other questions for John? Okay, I'll open the public hearing for any who've come to express anything on this. And I don't know if the applicant is here. Would you like to say anything, Mr. Brown? Please come to the mic. Okay. Just please come to the mic, so yeah, we get it on the record that way.
We have owned that property for a long time. We know it's blue clay. We've sold the property to a church group right there. We sold it to the school district. It's something that you just have to deal with. And in looking at the needs of the community, that's why we came up with this multiple zoning, to try to accommodate some less expensive things. If some of you know the problems with the cost of our land now, the average person in this town doesn't make a great living. In your paper and one of your studies show that 50% of the income of the people goes for housing. So we're just trying to accommodate different things that will help this community like we have for the last, 35 years. So we think it's a good zone. The only person that had a little problem with it, he said there was some zoning down the road that hadn't sold for a little while. Well, I didn't know quite where he came up with that, because maybe it hadn't sold. I've had that property for a long time and haven't sold mine either, because the right offer didn't come along. I didn't think the timing was right. So we think this zoning is something that will benefit the city, and we know it has blue clay, and those are some of the issues that we're dealing with. So, any other questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
Just your expectations would be from that 75 to 135 units. Can you narrow that down a little bit, what you might expect
I really
in density?
can't. It depends on who.
Speak in the mic, please.
It
Thank
just
you.
depends on who comes in at the time. For example, the property that I sold across the street was R3. They're not putting 12 units per acre. They're going to put approximately 7 to 9. So you don't know until somebody comes in and takes a look at it, and then we'll come back to you and see what will fit.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay. Any input from citizens that want to speak on this item 6 on our agenda? Then I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council.
Mayor, I think this is a good general plan amendment in this situation. This piece of property is on a hillside as well, if I remember it correctly, where it's at. So there's some other issues there. They're never, even if this were to come for a zone change, they're never going to be able to get the maximum amount of units on there. So this allows somebody to come in there and maybe build a product that's going to fit into our city very well, that will have some affordability to it, which is an issue, and it just gives some more room for them to develop a product that I think we want to see, rather than something just to the very highest density. So I'm okay to go ahead and make a motion to amend the general plan to change this from low density residential to medium density residential. the general plan.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
The next item is public hearing and consideration of an ordinance amending the general plan for the Tonnequint land use plan area to relocate areas of low-density residential, medium-density residential, and open space on approximately 1,200 acres located at the end of Curly Hollow Drive at approximately 1400 West. So this area is part of the Tonnequint area land use plan, and so there's two exhibits. There's the chart that's being reviewed, and then also the actual land use plan. So this is the area. Here's the Tonnequint Middle School, Curly Hollow, and about where their property begins. And so this is only a portion of the Tonnequint area. It's about 1,200 acres. So the current zoning is mining and grazing. When this was annexed into the area, that's our standard holding zone that comes into the city is the mining and grazing, and so majority of this property is still the mining and grazing. This is the current Tonnequint area land use plan. This plan was approved by the city council in December 2012. This was pre-annexation. We went through a study and a planning exercise and general planned this entire area. This is the plan that designated all this property further west as open space. It also outlined areas for development. There's approximately, probably over half of this property is land use as open space. And so these areas here are the areas that were defined as development. They are requesting to move some of the MDR locations, modify and increase some of the low-density residential, and also rearrange some of their open space that is within the development, not the stuff that is further west. So this will all remain, not be modified at all. So this is what the applicant is proposing. And I got a side-by-side which we'll compare and we can discuss their amendments. You have the low-density residential here. This is Curly Hollow. They're modifying some of the park locations here and expanding them and making them larger. This is a new medium-density residential location that was LDR. And so this is what they're proposing. They're also proposing a slight modification to the roads master plan or street master plan. So this is the table that they are proposing to modify. This column is the existing current plan, and this is the proposed plan. So in open space, currently there's 889. They're increasing it to 897. Parks land is currently 27. They're increasing it to 33. The low-density residential is currently 211 acres. They're increasing that to 237 acres. The medium-density residential is 44 acres. They're decreasing the MDR to 28, which is why the increase in low-density residential. The mixed-use resort area, they're not proposing any of the mixed-use resort area. The general commercial, they're not proposing any of the general commercial. And so there's some decrease in density, an increase in open space, an increase in low-density residential. They did approximate dwelling units, and the current plan anticipate about 941, and right now with the amendment they're going down to about 907. So this is the comparison between the two. Staff spent a lot of time on this particular application. We first looked at it about a year and a half ago, had them stake all the open space, and we went out there probably 4 or 5 times to stake it and make sure that some of those significant rock outcroppings were being preserved. And so we spent a lot of time on the open space. If you look, here's the two difference. You can see that the mixed use here and here is now low density residential. This area right here was low density residential remains. This area right here was medium density and commercial. This is now a park area and open space. This MDR is no longer there. It's now LDR. This section here was low density residential. They're proposing MDR at this location and that location. A change to the roads master plan. You can see this road right here. They planned on originally sweeping down to the south and connecting. They're proposing it to go through and connect to this road. And they're also eliminating this road right here. So that's the changes to the roads master plan. Planning Commission, they discussed this. They took public comment on it, and they recommended approval 4-1 on this application. So the hatched area is areas that may be a new high school and middle school site. And so if this does not end up being a high school or middle school site, it'll just revert back to the low density residential. And it's about 50 acres.
So John, this particular area has been open space in 2010, and it's being developed little by little. But just west of there would be located that zone 6. That would be the part of it for the turtle reserve for future consideration on that the BLM land. That this wouldn't impact any of that at all.
Right, and so it's currently zoned mining and grazing. This land use designation is open space, and this won't be removed. But this is where Mose Valley's at, and the Zen Trail is all in this location. And this is what's this study and plan is what proposed this to be open space.
And so we'd end up, the bottom line, a lower density from 941 down to 907. So
yeah, the density's been decreased overall.
thank you.
Any other questions? Staff recommended this.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on it. We feel comfortable with the amendment.
Okay. Thank you. So let's see, I'll open the public hearing at this time for anyone who may have come to express input on this item, which is number 7 on our agenda today. Seeing none, I'll come back to you, council, for your discussion and or a motion.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance amending the general plan for the Tonawanda land use plan area to relocate the areas of low density residential to medium density residential and the open space on the approximately 1,200 acres located at the end of Curly Hollow Drive at approximately 1400 west.
We have a motion by Ed with a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? This has been, we've discussed this sometime, and it's a large area.
Although you look at the math there, 907 units on 1,200 acres. That's less than a unit an acre.
Right. A lot of open space.
Right.
So, and again, I think pretty well planned infrastructure there in terms of the roads that we have connecting to this area and school thoughts for future schools. All right. Well, all in favor of the motion, starting with Jimmy this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you to the staff for all the work on that.
It's a lot of work. Putting you through the paces today, John.
We are, and I just realized that I don't have the Terrible Herbst PowerPoint on here. So you give me just a minute,
Yes.
I'll run down and get it.
We're good. We're good.
Thank you, Mr. Fee.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Mayor it's okay, I want to go make sure Joe's okay.
All right. We're going to take a brief recess since we won't have a quorum.
Awesome.
Very brief. Yeah. I didn't see. Yeah. Well, he wasn't. Yeah. I should have. Mr. Fee. Disagree with you. I understand. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
What are you laughing at, Wes? Oh, man. It's never happened before.
We're ready.
Next item on the agenda, item number 8. Consider approval of an ordinance amending the existing plan development PDZ zone on approximately 1.5 acres generally located at the northeast corner of the intersection at Pioneer Road and Sun River Parkway. So this was heard once before by the city council. This is location, this is Pioneer, Sun River Parkway. This is the site plan that was previously approved. So this is what the current approved canopy looks like. This is what the city council looked at the last meeting. The applicant has gone back and made some modifications, and this is what they're proposing. They've decreased the amount of blue. This canopy now matches the color of the building. And so all the blues not there anymore if you look at this one. So they've reduced the blue color and they painted it to match the building opposed to the gray. Here's a couple other pictures of the updated canopy design. There's also a few articulations in the canopy that they were not in the previous proposal.
Something else changed on that building.
Yes, and so they've changed the graphics on the signs on
Awesome.
the building.
Great, good.
And so
Because that was requested by some of the public last time.
If you weren't here last time, it said beer right on the front of it.
Maybe even cold beer. I'm not
Cold
sure.
beer. And some people spoke up
Ice
to
cold
that.
beer. No, I don't.
Yeah. that maybe that wasn't the best thing to have on the entrance to our community. So I think they listened to that. The applicant was trying to make some overtures.
And so the canopy was the first part of it. The second part of it was the updated elevation, the slightly modified roof. And so this is the current elevation, and this is the proposed elevation. I have the materials board. According to the applicant, this is the coloring is more in line with the hotel. There's a couple other perspective drawings. So that concludes staff's presentation on this proposal. If the city council has any questions.
Any other questions for John?
I have a question, John. Stop right there. So, as I look at that, that is the corner that faces Sun River, where the chevron and the chevron are.
So this is the direction that's
Right.
being viewed.
So, are they doing the same thing on the other side, on the east side?
On this side,
Yeah.
there is one. So this is what they're doing on the other side.
So both sides will have that blue part plus the chevron and the word chevron. Yeah, logo.
This is what they're proposing.
It's just a little confusing when it only shows one view of it.
Right.
Okay.
John, just can you refresh my memory and the public's perhaps, that when this was initially approved, the design and so forth, that the signage issue that the planning commission that was presented was merely, there was no approval on any of the signage on the walls or on that property, but other than a request that they comply with the existing city ordinance as far as any signage.
Any other questions for John, and then we'll go to the applicant? Okay. John, anything else?
Nope, I'll just.
Okay. Thanks for having all those images there.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Scott McComb with THSR Holdings. I think I got that right. New entities every day. For the record, we voluntarily have removed the beer references to the signage, and that won't be part of any final signage on any side of the building. So essentially, we're just proposing this more streamlined canopy, the updated colors and materials. We think it fits better with the hotel. We've reduced the canopy color blue down to just kind of an emblem amount. And otherwise, the canopy should match the building.
Keeping with the stone pillars that were not on the original plan.
Absolutely. You
Okay.
Which that is an improvement.
That
I like
is
that.
very
Yeah,
much so.
I think that's a real nice feature too.
Thanks for
Thank
keeping
you.
that, because I was hoping we were clear on that last time. We all liked that
Good.
addition last
Good.
time.
Now, which,
Yeah.
just to verify for which canopy up there is the one that you're,
The
bottom
lower one.
Yeah,
So
the
it's the
lower one
bottom
is
one
the
that
one
you-
that we will,
The new
that we're
proposed.
requesting approval of.
Sean?
So just to be clear on the record, since they're volunteering this, then you would make that part of the PD approval that they not advertise the beer sales on the building.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, discussion, council? We'd opened and closed the public hearing last time, so we will not be having a public hearing today on this item. So if you want any further discussion, we're welcome to do that. Otherwise, I'm ready for a motion. I do believe that the applicant has complied with exactly what was requested last time, so by us. No, there won't be any comments. It's not a public hearing. The public hearing was 2 weeks ago. No, it is not. We clarified that at the last meeting as well. What we'll do, we'll turn this to our city attorney so he can respond.
As you explained last time, what came from the planning commission is a recommendation. I apologize, my mic's not working. It's a recommendation from the planning commission. The city council is free to accept the recommendation, change the recommendation in any way at this stage of the process. So you are free to take a look at this and approve that bottom or changes as you see fit.
And remember, too, that the planning commission recommended approval as it was presented in the top drawing, with the previous top drawing, with the whole blue, it was the previous bottom drawing because it had a whole blue panel along the whole side. That's what they recommended. So we actually went a few steps further and requested some further changes. So we're free to do that, as the city attorney said. It is not. And sir, no, you need to sit down. You're out of order. We appreciate, the comments, but we checked this out 2 weeks ago. We asked this specifically of the city attorney. We're not in violation of our ordinance. Sean? We did. And we made that, we tried to make that clear, that because we denied it, we wouldn't have to go back through planning commission.
Did we deny it or table it?
We denied it. Yep. Which we did.
Yeah, and the question was asked then, did it have to go back to planning commission?
We directed them to make the changes, to work with staff and bring it back to us.
Cause, yeah, because the option is to make modifications on the spot and approve it, right? At that time.
Because we could have done that.
Or to send it back so the applicant could have some input on it. So here's what I would like to do. I'd like to make a motion, and then if there's an issue with it, if you find some issue with it as the city attorney, then we can always go back to whatever your recommendation is. Because so in thinking back, the planning commission had already recommended approval of the original proposal, which was different, which was a change from what they proposed. We didn't like that. I'm much more inclined to approve this design, as it matches the building and it has the pillars, so it looks more like it's conducive to the rest of the area and the hotel. So I will go ahead and make a motion to approve.
To reconsider.
Reconsider. And approve. As stated by the city attorney.
I'll second that.
With a modified canopy. Signage, which was requested too, I think, in the public hearing. Yes, so moved.
I second that.
So we have a motion to reconsider and to approve as has been presented today, and a second. That motion was made by Jimmy. The second was made by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then all in favor of the motion, starting with Ed, say aye.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you to the applicant. I believe again, and I believe this is perfectly in harmony with what was requested 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Okay, next up is consideration of the preliminary fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. And so after several months of meetings on this and discussion and work with staff, we are pleased to present to you the preliminary budget. As a preliminary budget for the upcoming year beginning July 1, There is still some change. It's subject to change. We'll continue to have a number of work sessions on this with the council over the coming month prior to final approval towards the end of June. So this budget for FY19, we're going to have Deanna Berklesich come and make some comments on this, where she's our budget manager. But while we're waiting on Deanna, I'll make a few comments here. The general fund for the city, it's a $73 million general fund. I think of significant interest to all of those in attendance tonight. There is no property tax increase proposed this year. The revenue that the city receives in property tax will remain steady. We will not be presenting or proposing a property tax rate increase. As I mentioned, $73 million general fund. A couple of areas that we've tried to prioritize to present to you tonight in the budget: public safety. We are proposing in this tentative budget 4 new positions in the police department and 9 new full-time positions in the fire department. As you're aware, we rely very heavily on volunteers in our fire department. That is becoming increasingly difficult to staff those positions. So we're moving to new full-time positions in the fire department. However, I would state the caveat that those fire positions are dependent on a grant that we've applied for through FEMA. And so we'll be, paying special attention to that to see how that grant may be awarded by FEMA. Another area that we've tried to prioritize, at least from a staffing perspective, is development services and land use. As you can see on this agenda, we've gone through a handful of land use items so far. We haven't even gotten to the final plats and preliminary plats. There's an extraordinary amount of work there, so we've added 3 positions to our land use divisions. We've presented to you the management letter, and of course the remainder of that budget draft that Deanna's got. Hard copies were provided. A lot of great projects in the budget this year. I think our residents are going to be really pleased to see everything from parks to infrastructure, utilities, a lot of really good things happening in this coming budget. And so with that in mind, we'll have Deanna provide a little bit more information, and then council, any feedback you may have for us that we can take into consideration and then work into the final budget to for June. We're looking for that type of feedback, and anything you'd like for us to focus on, whether it's personnel or projects or anything of the sort, we would be looking for that type of feedback from you tonight, as well as an approval of the preliminary budget.
Okay. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you.
We love you.
This has been it's been a very challenging year, but as usual, we get through it. And first and foremost, I want to thank my counterparts, the department heads, all the supervisors and managers that have helped and assisted with putting this budget together in its preliminary form. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes from everyone collectively, and I couldn't do it without everyone's help, Christina's and Adam's as well. So I just want to say that I appreciate everyone's help and your support and so forth. So state law does require us to bring the preliminary budget, to the mayor and city council during the first meeting in May. They require us to adopt it by June 22nd. And with that said, by delivering the preliminary budget to you tonight, we'd like to schedule, we're only required to have 1 public hearing for the final budget, but typically we've had 2. So we'd like to set the public hearings for June 7th and June 21st to review the budget with the adoption by June 21st. And with the intention that over the next couple of work meetings that we will have the department heads come and meet with the council and discuss any budget items or any questions or priorities that you want to discuss at that time. Adam did mention that the total budget is just a little over $73 million. That's about a 9.5% increase, and that's the general fund budget. That's about a 9.5% increase from the adopted budget in fiscal year 2018. A predominant amount of that increase is being recognized because of sales taxes, and a small increase in the revenues for property taxes, but only due to new growth. As Adam mentioned, we're not going to request a increase in the certified tax rate. The total city-wide budget, which includes all our enterprise funds, all our capital project funds, and everything in between, is $270,862,000, and so it's quite a big budget that we're proposing to you this year. And with that,
270,862.
$270,862,000. So just a token.
73?
72,000 or 73,206.
73,206,000.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, 73 million.
Sorry, we're befuddling you. Just
I've seen a lot of numbers lately,
Yeah.
so, but we want to get that one right.
Just a million here or there.
Just a million. Multiply it by 10, and you'll get there.
Well, we really appreciate all the work you've done, plus our new city administrator and what he's done and how he's processed this whole procedure on the budget. I think it speaks quite well for all of the staff. We really appreciate it. Are you ready for a motion, Mayor? Or
I just want to be clear that, Deanna, we love you.
Thank you.
Thoughts and prayers are with you and your husband, and you've done an amazing job under the circumstances, and
Thank you.
Love you. Anyway, and Adam coming in and having to get into this, and because we're growing, if we don't keep up with the growth in, public safety, infrastructure, different things, we're going to fall behind the 8 ball, and that's why we see our general fund going up, because we do need these new positions. And we'll duke out a few things in the next upcoming meetings. Adam, be prepared. I've already talked to him a couple of times, but, overall, you guys have done a good job. There's I think we do need more police officers. And we will have plenty of time to talk about that in all our upcoming discussions.
go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to comment. So we have received from our police chief, I asked him to prepare kind of an updated prioritized list of the positions that he's been requesting in his department. In the preliminary budget that you've got tonight, we took those top 4, and then I had him go back and say, all right, if we were able to fund additional positions, how would you prioritize that? So he's provided that updated list. That's something that we could look at again in one of our upcoming work sessions. That's one of the items that Councilman Randall had discussed with me, and I think that's something that we could consider as a group. We'd be looking for your direction on that item. So we welcome that discussion.
Well, and that's why it's good to get it now. And again, just to be clear, for the next at least 2 work meetings, which would be the 2nd and 4th Thursdays at 4 p.m., I think is what's planned. We'll be discussing almost totally just budget. And we'll go as long as we need to. So kind of come with your, whatever. Your pizza. And maybe we'll provide the pizza, Joe, but yeah, come ready, because we'll want to, whatever, questions you have, as we've kind of been doing the last couple of years, the department heads will be here to answer questions, but really it's going to be a lot about, what questions do you have as Adam kind of talks us through the budget.
I have a question, Adam. The increase in the fire department would undoubtedly include the new building that's being built out in Little Valley, or is that
Not
in
yet.
place yet?
Not yet. So
Okay.
the thought there is, because that building is likely not going to be completed, just given construction timeframes, by the
Okay.
end of this upcoming fiscal year. And so the positions are designed right now to increase staffing on our existing crews at existing stations. However, when Station 9 is completed in Little Valley, which we're estimating is probably early in the fiscal year 2020 budget, that those positions we're approving today would then be moved to that new station. Now, that doesn't fulfill all of our long-term staffing needs in the fire department. We recognize that, but that is the long-range plan for those positions. We bolster existing stations now, Little Valley gets completed, and then we can move those positions there. Hopefully then those individuals, they're all trained, they're completely up to speed on where we need them to be with respect to certifications and things like that, and they can just get right into that new station and open it up.
Thank you. And if the grant doesn't materialize, then those positions don't come on.
Then we need to revisit what the appropriate number to fund is at
We
that
may
point.
fund some, but.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could envision a scenario where we get nothing in the grant. I think our chances are good of getting at least a portion of that grant. Let's say we got nothing. I think there's still a scenario where, just through general fund, other revenues, that we still fund a portion of those positions. But without the grant, all 9 would be a challenge.
We've even had a preliminary discussion with one of our folks in Washington, D.C. to try to help us, with anything they can in terms of that grant. So we'll see how that goes.
Just as long as we get more firefighters than police officers.
Well,
Chief.
Uh-oh.
Everybody likes firefighters. Come on. I'm kidding, Chief.
You've made a lot of progress, starting with the total number of positions we started with, 51, 52, down to, what is 26 now?
Yes.
Correct.
So
23 in the general
that's
fund.
quite meaningful. I think we're being prudent in how we try to oversee the taxpayers' money and what we can afford and what we need to have, as Michelle outlined. So I think that's a good job.
Well, and when you consider, again, and this was mentioned by Deanna and Adam, but we are growing very quickly. And I think there's been a very prudent approach, really,
Yep.
to take and to do what is needed for those areas of growth. And there probably will need to be a few tweaks. Adam understands that. Deanna understands that. But I think this is a very great budget. And again, we always make a few changes. We'll look for your direction over the next month or so. And then, as Deanna said, for the public, I'd love to have lots of public here to give us comments. We'll advertise the heck out of it as best we can. We'll put it on our reader boards, whatever we can, on that first and third Thursday of June.
Right.
And then we would plan to adopt it probably that third Thursday, correct, Deanna?
That's correct. We have to adopt it formally by June 22nd by state law. So we're going to plan to adopt it one day prior, and the preliminary budget will be on the city's website hopefully by the end of this night.
Excellent.
And so it will be available for our citizens and also our employees and management to also review it by tomorrow morning. So.
And then again, just an invitation for anyone watching out in TV land. Even those work meetings, those are public meetings. Oh, Tony, you're watching. Your wife says. So you can come to those work meetings, which are not televised. So if you want to come, that is those are public meetings as well. 4 o'clock on those 2 Thursdays, second and fourth Thursdays of this month. Blah, blah. Okay, so any other comments? Lots of time to do that in the next month or so. Ready for a motion, Ed, if you're still
Mayor, I
inclined.
make the motion that we accept and adopt the preliminary fiscal year budget 2018-2019 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Ed. Was that correct language?
Just like maybe we set the public hearings.
Do we need to set the public hearings as well as part of the motion?
Right.
Ed, would you add that to your motion?
Yes, let's set the public hearings
As had been mentioned, for the first and third Thursdays, that'd be June 7th,
June 7th and June
21st,
yes.
2018. Is that okay, Ed?
Absolutely.
So that was a motion by Ed with a second by, was that? Michelle.
I thought.
Michelle
I
did.
didn't listen.
Yeah. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Starting with Jimmy this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you
Thank you.
again, Deanna.
Item 10 is a conditional use permit for the Bicycle Skills Park on Lava Flow Drive. And we're going to have Mark Goebel, and let's see, John, are you going to take some of this from the land use side?
Yeah, I'll do the initial, then I'll turn it over to Mark to discuss the specifics.
He should feel good.
So this is a conditional use permit for a bike skills park. This is the location. The zoning has two zones. It's R110 and open space. In the R110, any park that is over 10 acres is a conditional use permit, and so thus the request for the conditional use permit. This is the overall site plan. Planning Commission, they heard this item, and I'll just quickly give the recommendation, then I'll turn over to Mark to talk about the specifics. Planning Commission, they reviewed it with the findings A through K and recommended approval for this particular item and request. And so Mark can talk about more specific these items.
Thank you, John. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. You guys ready to start talking about something exciting? Yeah, we're thrilled to have this facility be proposed and to have it implemented.
You've been working on this for a little while, Mark?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been good. I've learned some things, and people are very, very excited about this. I know there's some that may not be, but there's a huge group of community, the bike community, mountain bike community, even the BMX community that's very excited about this facility. So what I wanted to do is just go over this concept plan a little bit, give a little overview of what's happening here. So we have several different areas that are bicycle skills area components that are a little different. This one where I'm circling right here, this is called the Gravity Jump Trails area.
And you'll zoom in at some point, but for right now, yeah.
Right. So I have the Gravity Jump Skills area right here, the pump track area in this location.
Can you describe what each of those mean for us novices?
Yes. Okay. Here, I'll zoom in just a little bit more. The Gravity Jump Trails area, there's berms, there's jumps, there's kicker ramps. So you take your bike, you go up, you jump onto a different jump, you jump onto a dirt tabletop. There's also something called a whale tail, which you'll see a picture of shortly. Then if we go down to the pump track area, there's the kids and beginner area for the pump track, and then there's the intermediate and advanced. And with the pump track, what that is you're really not supposed to pedal on a pump track. You're supposed to use your center of gravity to get yourself to flow across the track. And what that is, it's just a series of bumps. You go up and down, you'd make some turns, and you end up back at the start. It's kind of a loop situation. So then you go down to the dirt jump zone, which is down here. It's basically straightforward. It's a bunch of jumps. You'll have different levels of experience. You got beginner, intermediate, advanced, and there's different trails to each of those skill levels. And then on the east side of the park is what's called the progressive drop zone. And then there's also a kids practice skills loop and a beginner gravity skills area as well. And so over here, there's trails, more dirt berms. There's also some what's called a log ride, an A-frame type of structure. And then there's these drops. So you go across a platform, and then you drop down into a trail. And again, I'll have photos of this, so you'll understand what I'm saying.
Like drop.
You drop.
Mark,
you
this
go
is fun,
off and
right?
drop like you're going off a cliff, but not really a cliff.
What'd you say, Adam?
I said this is fun, right?
Yeah. So, and then you'll see throughout the entire site is a single track trail, and that's a cross-country trail, and we've also been working with the local groups. You can see some of these trails down here, talking about what this would be. It's termed the NICA Loop Trail, which stands for National Interscholastic something. Anyway, it's high school racing. Say that again. Okay. See, it's a long term, but we call it NICA for short.
We're good
So
with that.
We've met with the community here, the bicycle community, and the county, members of the Flying Monkeys, and they are very excited to have a loop inside St. George to host events, regional events, and possibly the state event for the high school mountain biking. And what they need for that event is a 6-mile loop. And so we are able to fit 6 miles of single track trail in this site. And the site is very compatible. I guess as far as it's being next to the high school, there's 1,000 parking spaces at the high school and middle school that could accommodate these events for the state and regional events. Because there are a lot of people, a lot of kids, high school kids that come to this high school event for cycling, and it's growing every year. So now I'm going to flip to a different image. This is phase 1 of the project. So if you look at the area highlighted in red, that's phase 1. So we're including all of the skills areas minus the Nike Loop and the cross-country trail.
Mark, will you just point out where Lava Flow is and
Yes.
Two-Weep?
So Lava Flow Drive is over here on the west side of the facility.
Following the arrow there, see the cursor?
And then on the east side is Two-Weep Drive. So you can see that most of the facility is on the west side of the wash. And we have a little bit that's on the east side of the wash. And in future phases, we'll be working on these single track trails. And so I just want to give a little explanation here. 1800 North is up here in this location. And as part of phase 1, we're not going to do anything with that road, but in future development of the park, there'll be further discussion with the city on what we're going to do.
That's master plan to be a road
Yes,
connecting across
it
the top.
is.
Yeah.
But that will not be, again, won't be handled during phase 1, because phase 1 construction is more towards the middle of the park. We have some multi-use trails that we're going to add as well. If we start over here on Lava Flow, we'll take that trail and follow it all the way down and connect to the existing trail at the south. So I need to point this out too. There is an existing trail that goes down the center of this property. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit more, just so we have an idea of what's existing out there right now. So here's the existing Sand Hollow Wash Trail, if you follow my cursor, basically right down the middle of this concept plan, and then it comes over towards Lava Flow Drive and then hits Sunset Park. That trail will not be affected. It's going to stay in place. Then we have the access from Two-Weep Drive to Lava Flow Drive. That is a pedestrian crossing across the wash. That will still remain in place. When we're doing construction, there might be some temporary closures, but that will not be demolished. It'll stay in place. As part of phase 1, we have a restroom building. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit again. This restroom building in this location will be built, as well as this pavilion, this turf area, and landscaping around the restroom and the pavilion. Currently, we don't have enough money to pave the parking, but we're just going to use the existing dirt parking that's there right now. But in the future, we plan to pave and do parking there. And then up here, towards the north, we intend to add additional parking. And then on the east side of the project, some more parking. So that's a total of about 150 spaces that we plan to include in this project. But phase 1, we will just include the dirt parking area. Now I wanted to pull up an exhibit that shows the floodplain, because I know there's been comments and people being concerned about the floodplain. And most of our improvements to this facility is not in the floodplain. The dark area is the 100-year floodplain. The light blue area is the 500-year floodplain. Our restroom pavilion are located out here up on the hill. Most of our expensive improvements are outside of this floodplain. It's outside of the riparian zone. The only areas where the improvements are going to take place inside the floodplain is where we're crossing the wash right here at that existing crossing. and then down towards the bottom where the trail crosses down here so we can get to the other side of the facility. Along the way, there might be a little bit of the single track just kind of weaving in and out a little bit, but for the most part, all of the improvements are outside of the floodplain, the 500-year floodplain.
Clarify for me, is there any structures in that 100-year floodplain besides that bridge?
No, there are no structures. The only things will be the single track trail as well as that existing pedestrian crossing. So when a flood event does happen, it'll wipe out a trail that might take a few $1,000s to replace instead of hundreds of $1,000s to replace. Now I'm going to show you some photos. This is exciting. The more exciting part. So this gives you an idea of what the Flow Ride Gravity Jump Trails area looks like. This is the first area that I talked about. So you have this wall slant ride over here. You got some berms. You got your kicker ramps right here to get you up onto a dirt table. Go to the next. Now this is the whale tail. This is the most, how'd you say, the most difficult feature.
Your kids are going to be doing that, Jimmy.
You have this kicker ramp here, and then you jump onto this ramp over here and just go on. Hopefully one day I'll be able to do something like this.
Wow.
And this is called the gravity flow. Again, more of the gravity flow area where you're really not pedaling your bike. You're coasting down and using your gravity to go along the trails. I'm going to zoom on this. So this is the pump track area. And so you can see how there's been revegetation. There's trees being added along the outside of the track. You have the rollers here. You have the dirt berms here. And so as part of our project, we're going to, wherever there's disturbed areas, we're going to handle that with either revegetation, landscaping, and to control the dust, we have areas that we call quick couplers, or it's basically a hose bib so you can water down the site to keep the dust down. Here's another image of a pump track. You can see in this image there's all ages. You got little kids, you got teenagers, you got adults, and this type of facility is going to attract professional riders as well. So you're going to have the experts, you're going to have the beginners. They're all going to be together. They're all going to learn from each other what the skills they need to have, and we're excited about that togetherness. Here's another image of the dirt jump zone. So you got a bunch of jumps, tabletops right here. So after you jump, you land on the tabletop, or if you're really good, you can make it to the next downside of the jump. This is part of the drop zone. This is where I talked about you go straight off of a platform and then you drop down onto the trail. This is an image from Park City. This is just some of the cross-country trails that they have. So they're trying to make their way through the existing vegetation, and that's what we are proposing to do on this project. We don't want to remove any trees. We want to be sensitive to the site. We don't want to remove too many shrubs or other plants. We want to work with the site, and that's what this Skills Park will do. It'll flow with the natural contours of the site, and there won't be much disturbance. And we're completely staying out of the riparian zone. Here's another image from Park City. And this track up in Park City has been very popular. And then I've got an image from, this is another Park City image with just one of the skills features. An image of a platform and just dropping down. But again, you see people of all ages, kids using this facility so they can learn how to maneuver these type of elements, even though this is kind of man-made. When they go out into all the trails that are around the city of St. George, there are these types of things that are natural on those trails. So this helps the kids, adults, learn how to do those skills here at this park so they can use those skills and take them outside on the trails that surround the city.
So
So Mark, you're saying from ages 8 to 80, so Joe and I will be able to.
That's right. But I do want to explain, there's no motorized bikes. So we've got mountain bikes, BMX bikes, which is a smaller bike, and for the little kids, they use what's called a Strider bike. So this is an image up of the Draper City Bicycle Skills Park. And so they put the trails in, and then they did some revegetation around. They're trying to help control the soil. And that's what we want to do as well. We want to revegetate the disturbed areas, try to bring back the nature in. Because I can hear some people complaining about destroying the site. We're not destroying the site, and we don't want to destroy the site. We're sensitive to this site. Back in January of 2017, we had a public meeting to go over this Bicycle Skills Park and what the public wanted for this park. I see good old Kent Perkins there leading the way of that meeting. At the meeting, we discussed with the public, okay, what do you want to see? We listed down some items, and we gave everybody the opportunity to vote on what type of amenity they wanted in the facility. And so that's what you see here, the different areas with their votes in the green dots. Now this is a photo of the current site, and so we're standing on the south hill on the site, looking towards the north and Snow Canyon. And I put this picture up here because it is a beautiful site. You have this beautiful riparian area, but where the Skills Park area is going to happen is outside of this riparian area. So if you remember looking back at that concept plan, the jump area is up here in this location, which is already a little bit disturbed. We got the pump track area that's in this location, and this is where, when they were building the high school, they disturbed that land. And then this is the hill towards the north side of the facility. This is where the restroom will be, the pavilion. And then our gravity flow area is going to be off here because this hill really helps with that gravity flow. It's a perfect site for that type of amenity. And then on the east side is where we have that drop zone. So again, looking at this picture, most of those improvements are on the outside of the riparian area, outside of the floodplain, the 500-year and 100-year floodplain. Okay, and that's all on the photos. So I just wanted to go over a few things as part of the conditional use permit. As far as the noise, yes, there's going to be noise from clapping, encouragement, screaming from the fans of parents watching their kids go through these events, helping them build the skills to do these bicycle skills areas. The dust, like I said before, the dust will be controlled with water. During construction, we'll have water trucks out there to keep the dust down. And when the facility is in use, the water will be used to control the dust, as well as we're going to do the revegetation. Odors, there's no odors to be expected on this site. The aesthetics, like I said, there will be minimal impact to the existing site and the vegetation, and the riparian corridor will not be impacted, and landscaping will be installed around the pavilion, restrooms, and parking lots. Safety, the skills area has been designed to the highest standards of this type of facility. We hired a consultant to help us through that process. And off-street parking will be provided to help some users avoid crossing the streets to access the park. The traffic, of course, this will increase the traffic to the site, but we're trying to accommodate some of that traffic by having those parking areas. And when there's large events, we intend that those that are in charge of those events, that they take the adequate control measures for traffic control before, during, and after the events. And as far as height, the highest structure on this facility is the pavilion, which is only 22 feet. And that's a 60-foot diameter pavilion. And we intend that pavilion to be a meeting place for the events. The hours of operation will only occur during the It says on here the daytime hours, but our typical park hours are from sunrise until 10. And the only things that will be lit on this facility are the restroom and the pavilion, so there will be no other lights within the facility. So when it's dark, people shouldn't be using the facility on the trails. The restroom pavilions may be open until 10, but the rest of the facility would not, because it's dark. One of the last things that I just wanted to say is, I know there's some negative impacts to this site, but there's so many positives to this site as well, that the positives outweigh the negative impacts that this facility will create. And I know one of the ladies on the planning commission, she was very emotional about this project because it was something that she's been involved with. She knows how important this facility is to build the character of the kids. This is something for kids to do, something other than doing video games or staying at home, not doing anything. This is something to get kids out, get some exercise, build skills, help them just improve their life and move on and be excited about stuff. I know a lot of these kids are very excited about mountain biking, and they're very excited for this facility. I think that's all I had.
Mark,
See if there's any questions.
Mark,
that you have.
a question for you, and you probably covered it, but the parking for this facility, you talked about that it would be, at least at this point, just a dirt lot. That will be
Correct.
off of Lava Flow.
Correct. I'll pull up this map again. So the first phase of parking will be in this location. You have the seminary building across the street.
So is that location paved?
Right here. Now this will be dirt for the first phase because we don't have the funds to pave it yet. But in our next phases, we plan to pave this parking here, this parking up here, as well as the parking on the east side.
Is it contemplated at all any traditional, park equipment in the future, or not really?
There is.
That's what I was thinking. We'd talk
So this
about.
area up here is our neighborhood park component. We have a few more pavilions up here. This pink area is what we're calling the playground. And then we have some turf areas around that. One of the elements that is not shown on this but has been discussed as part of our bicycle group is having a little kid area that's just a strider track. So again, that's just that
Those bikes
small bike
without pedals. Yeah.
Yep. Just to help those little kids get those skills.
Mayor, I wish the public behind here could see his face as he described some of these jumps, and I even seen Jimmy light it up a couple of times when some of those challenges were there. It's pretty neat. Mark, can I ask a question? What's the distance of the nearest home from the jump sites and so forth? How close are they to that?
So the closest homes are going to be right here, the ones that are off of Lava Flow.
So we're talking about in feet. Can you give
So
me
we've got, I did a quick measurement right here to about this point is about 50 feet. So we're almost 100 feet here, and you're probably 75 feet here. But then a portion of the Nika Loop will probably go between this track and the block wall. But these homes are perched up a little bit, and then it drops off.
Because we received so many notifications of interest and concern on this, and you said you've met with the bike representatives of bikers and so forth. Have you met with citizens on the opposition side there to hear their points of view? And
No.
anything outstanding?
We haven't.
So-
But we had that public meeting that was open to everybody. It was announced. It wasn't given by a formal letter to attend the meeting. We had Facebook, social media, as well as on the city website. So if they wanted to come, they had the opportunity to come. But there was no formal
Thank you. Could I
letter
ask-
to everybody.
We have talked about it in several of these in our public meetings as well, but
I just want to ask our city attorney, Sean, Is there any particular civil liabilities as far as maintenance and so forth on a project like this that the city would have concerns about that would distinguish it in any greater effort than any other park we might have?
I would say that this is like having our diving boards at the pool, right? We know that there could be some liability associated with it. We do everything we can to design it to appropriate standards, and then you all decide that it's worth the risk for us to go and do something that's fun for the public to do, and we can't eliminate every risk. So the way that Parks has gone about designing this is according to all of the national standards to address those risk situations, and so I feel comfortable with this project, the way it's designed.
Great, thank you.
We also have the skate park.
Yeah.
Down at Snow Park that's similar.
It's different because under state law, skate parks, we have immunity from liability, so it's kind of in a different arena. In fact, if we had sprayed for horses,
So it's kind of almost as dangerous as a swing set.
that's right. But if you look at our playgrounds, we do everything we can to keep that risk to a
Right.
minimum and to keep it to current design standards, and we've had a great track record with it. Continuing with it, by the way.
Other questions for Mark or for staff?
Just a question, Mark, when you're talking about some of the impacts of, you're saying noise from the clapping and cheering, I mean, we're not talking about, this is open to the public, right? We're not talking about there's an event there every day.
Right. Typically, the event for the high school, they'd have one regional event and one high school event a year. So
Okay.
that's twice a year.
So besides scheduled and planned events, then it's just open to the public
Correct.
as a riding park. Okay.
Yep.
We just have the added benefit of those once a year, twice a year kinds of events. Okay. By the way, Mark texted me, National Interscholastic Cycling Association. Yeah, that's good, Mark. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Mark?
Mark Mortensen. Christine, did you get that? I just wanted to mention, too, that Utah is the largest, we have the largest group of kids racing in this NICA league in the country. Utah is by far and above the largest state with the most number of kids racing in this, larger than California, which is a country unto itself. So we definitely have a need for something like this. And when people come to St. George, they're not saying, hey, do you guys have a bike park? They're asking, where's your bike park? You know, because they just expect it to be here, given our brand and our outdoor recreation emphasis. So this is something that the bicycle community is incredibly excited about.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your help with this as well. We also talked about this, council, several years ago when the whole RAP tax was being discussed, when it was on the ballot for the voters. It was one of those few things that we actually listed as something that we plan to do with the money. There's also an agreement. In fact, a resolution has already been passed by the county commission in support of this financially. They plan to contribute some tourism funds because of the tourism component that was just mentioned. So, and they know what the facility looks like, as the plan is, as Mark mentioned, and they're very supportive, including Kevin Lewis, who's the new, I don't know his exact title, but the director of tourism for the county. He was just recently appointed to that position. So. Anyway, just a few other tidbits. Any other questions for our staff? This is, again, considering a conditional use permit for this area, as has been described by John originally. And so that is what is before you at this time. Welcome a motion if you're so inclined.
Just a little commentary, and you guys have heard me say this before, and for the public, we do we have a lot of different venues in St. George. We have a world-class softball complex. Speaking of that, yeah, it's great. It's really close, walking distance for you. Isn't that awesome? So, as a coincidence, my son's Eagle project is going to be to put a flagpole there at the softball complex. You know there's not one there? You didn't know that, did you? So hopefully we'll be getting that done the next week or so. Anyways, we have baseball fields. We have a world-class marathon. We get a lot of flack from certain people because we closed down some roads for that marathon. Interestingly enough, one of the letters I got in opposition to this park was a friend of mine who runs the marathon and does the Ironman and loves it, not realizing that, you know, other people are opposed to what his choice of recreation is. We have walking trails all over the city. There are some people like Joe that'll never use those, but there are some people that will and that love them.
Only because Joe said that right?
Yeah, Joe agrees. Yeah, and Joe is probably not going to get on a bike. I'm just going to be right up front with you. And there's a lot of people that won't, but there are people that will do some of all of those things. There are some people that hate the Sun Bowl, right, Joe? Yeah. And there's some of us that love it. And so there are some people that never go to a park, and there's some that love it. There are some people that never play soccer, but we have some great soccer. There's some people that never play pickleball. We have world-class pickleball place. We have a little bit of something for everyone. And that's what we've tried to do, and we've tried to spread the love. This sort of is in my mind, is a fulfillment of a promise. When the RAP tax was put forth by the county, I wasn't necessarily a big proponent or a fan of that, but the voters voted based on a list of things that we said we would do with the money. And this is one of those things that we said we would do with the money. Now, it's never going to be easy for those people that live in these neighborhoods to see something change because there's been open space there. Come down to my neighborhood in Lilla Valley, the whole area changed. A whole bunch of people moved in there, and it ruined my areas to ride horses, to go on a walk. Right now there's a house being built in my backyard, gosh darn it, because it's not necessarily what I want, but it is what somebody else wanted. So
what about the city parks complex near you?
You're right. Beautiful.
And we have, again, softball.
Right. Baseball. The baseball people come to me all the time. There's not enough baseball fields. But we do have what I'm calling, we're getting to where we have a world-class baseball complex. And we will, it'll get better. So there are things that we do that we personally may not decide to use. I heard something today that was very profound in one of our earlier meetings. And I'm going to massacre this, Mayor, so you can help me. She was talking about her parents moving here in 1978, and they bought this piece of property out in the middle of nowhere and built their little farm and complex, and this was their piece of paradise. And then suddenly, somebody came in and said, hey, we're going to buy this piece next to you, and we have some plans to do some other activity that maybe wasn't as conducive to what they wanted. And she became very upset, and so she went to her father and said, hey, what do I do? My paradise is being ruined. And her very wise father said to her, why are you or why are we the only ones that have an opportunity to dream? And that's really what our community is about. As we will have welcomed the world, which we've done, when we punched the freeway through and when we started getting golf course, that's what we were doing. And we've welcomed the world. Now our challenge is to welcome them and not lose our soul, so to speak. And that's what we're trying to do with our planning and with having some of these activities, is to bring our community still together, have a little bit of something for everyone. And that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. I know we're not going to please everyone. These things are tough because they come in, they change an existing open space. There could be homes in some of that area. Some of it's planned for R1, or some of it's zoned for R1. It could be homes.
It's out of the floodplain, so
right,
it could be.
And it could be because it's out of the floodplain. And so that would increase traffic. There's everything that happens in our community from here forward is going to increase traffic. I don't know how you can slice that any other way. So just my commentary on it, my 2 cents, if you will.
I'm really pleased with the concept, Mayor, of 8 to 80, the age groups that are designed that can use this. It just it's not working very good today, but it just is really a family-oriented in so many ways as well, and I think that's a real positive for the community, not just those from the outside to come in, but they're going to come in with their families, and that is part of what the city of St. George is, a family-oriented community.
Thank you. It's not a public hearing, so no, you're not able to speak at this time. Any other? The other thing, I was talking to our city manager, to Adam, earlier. You know, it's certainly something we are aware, and Mark and John both addressed this. We are aware that at certain times, especially, there will be some traffic and parking concerns. But we do think, as far as something, especially that, you know, where we have ownership of, we have city property within the city that we can use for such a park, we're very fortunate to have the relationship we do with the school district and to have those parking lots very close for those events. We will certainly watch the traffic carefully. Adam and I were talking about earlier. We'll do the best we can. We'll address issues. We are already doing our best to address those. Sometimes it's just simply with more enforcement. Sometimes it's on a particular event day where we're going to, as I think was mentioned, we're going to have, if it's a special event, we're going to have appropriate staffing, including police presence, to make sure that traffic concerns are addressed. We want people to be safe in those kinds of situations too. But on the day-to-day basis, I think it's just going to be a really, if it's approved, a very fun place for a lot of people to spend their time. And again, fathers, sons, you know, mothers, sons, daughters, you know, I think it's grandparents, right?
Right.
And so I think it's a great opportunity if we choose to take it. Appreciate all the work that has gone into it with the community and our staff. So I'm ready for a motion if you are, Council.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the bicycle skills park as described and articulated here today.
Second. We have a motion by Ed and a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Adam.
Next up, we've got items 11 through 19, additional land use applications. And so we'll have our planning staff come and make those presentations.
Thank you. Let me find this. Okay, the next item is a request. You okay to go ahead?
Go ahead, Wes.
Okay. The next item is a request for a hillside development permit to allow development of a proposed single-family residential development on Bandit Hills Drive. Purpose of this project is to develop 11 residential lots in compliance with the hillside ordinance. The applicant is Quality Development Representative Steve Kamlowski. Property is located at approximately 2915 East Bandit Hills Drive. Zone is R110. And so this is the property right here. So here's Bandit Hills Drive. Here's Copper Cliff Drive, which was 3000 East. Anyways, and then this is the road, Bandit Hills Drive, that leads up to the west side of the airport. And so the property in question is right here. You can see right here the zone is R110. These open space areas are hillside areas. Again, there's the property. So this went to Hillside and Planning Commission. The red areas right here are the areas of 40% slope. And then the green, I believe, are the 20 to 29, and then the yellow are 30 to 39. We met out on site about right here with the Hillside Review Committee. It was determined that, as we met out there, that most of these slopes right in this area were created by construction of Bandit Hills Drive. So as they went up through there and graded the road and stuff, they just piled material up here. And that's how come you can see that they show us 40% slopes, because they're just mounds.
It was also presented that possibly this was up here too, these slopes. However, as we discussed in Planning Commission, some of these were not created by Bandit Hills Drive. They were actually native portions. However, the ordinance says hillsides 40% or greater that aren't contiguous to a hillside can be, at the recommendation of the Planning Commission, approval of council, removed. And so we had a good discussion about this at Planning Commission, and it was determined that they really aren't contiguous to this hillside over here, and because of the road, they're really not contiguous to this hillside over here. So in the end, they determined that they were not contiguous to any hillside, and it was determined that they could be removed and not considered. And so that was their recommendation that, oh, hey, there you go, a little bigger view. That was their recommendation that these 40% slopes were not contiguous and could be disturbed. There also is this hillside is, or this ridge, that's the ridge line right there, that black line that John and I walked out with him a number of times and then kind of established between us and them what the ridge line was. This is not on the ridge line map, as shown on the ridge line that the council has approved previously. And so areas within the hillside that have a ridge line that isn't on that map, then there's a 30-foot setback. And that's what that line represents there, is a 30-foot setback from that ridge line. That's a no disturbed, no build area. So that's what the hatch area represents. And then there are some large cliffs that lead up there to the airport, right over here. So we had a rockfall hazard study was done for this site. This line right here represents what was determined from their study is the rockfall hazard, kind of the extent of where rockfall hazard would occur, is this line right here. They did do a rockfall hazard study. The initial study, basically, if you read it, recommended that if they wanted to develop this, they could put a 10 or 12-foot berm along the road here to intercept all those rocks. And originally, the first proposal we saw was to have a road come in right through here, with lots over here and lots along here. However, the developer or the applicant has determined over some thinking it over that it really wasn't conducive to build a big berm right along here to try to mitigate that rockfall, and so they've just determined to put just single lots along here with no road in between. So this area right here could be developed. It's just that you could not have a livable dwelling unit or structure within this area here. So it could be landscaped, your driveway could have a basketball court, those kind of things, but everything within this line here would not have a structure within it. But they could build up, so that would become the setback line, the front setback line for these lots right through here. When you get back into here, then it goes back to the 25-foot setback right through here. And so that was what was presented at Hillside. They recommended approval. Planning Commission on a 4-2 vote also recommended approval, and so forth. And so also, just so you're aware, when Maple Estates came in, we didn't really request a rockfall hazard study at that time for this hillside slope behind them. However, we felt like if you're going to do it now, let's have you do it then too, just to verify. And so that line right there represents, from their study, the limit of the rockfall hazard, which you can see stays out of all of those lots except for that little corner area right here and right here. We just had them do that to make sure that we were okay with what we had planned on doing in that area here.
Any questions, council? Ed, were you at the Hillside Review?
I was,
meeting?
Mayor, and they received all the paperwork that was required that they were awaiting prior to and forwarded to the Planning Commission as well. And I might just add there is no significant challenges to this. And it is just another part of St. George that has beautiful views from there. It's really a nice location.
So Councilman Buck is correct. They did request the Hillside, as they read the study on the rockfall hazard, they asked them to go back and look at some other items and update their study. They have done that. That has been sent out to the Hillside Committee, and we have not had any response to that. So,
Any other questions, council? Staff's comfortable, I assume?
Yeah.
Taking it through the process.
Mhm.
of the Planning Commission as well, so, all right.
Motion to approve the hillside development permit for 2915 East Bandit Hills Drive.
Second.
I have a motion by Michelle with a second by Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to consider approval of a 12-lot residential subdivision final plat called Aspen Estates Phase 4. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at 3140 East Red Cedar Drive. Zone is R110. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. So if you look right here on your vicinity map, here's 3000 East right here. This is the Arbors development. This is that vacant piece of property except for that one home right here owned by the Segmiller family. Anyways, they're just to the east of that property.
Questions on this final plat for Aspen Estates, Phase 4?
Motion to approve Aspen Estates Phase 4.
Motion by Michelle, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to consider approval of a 16-lot residential subdivision final plat called Painted Desert Estates Phase 7. Representative is Rosenberg Associates. Property is located approximately 1450 east and 2250 south in the Painted Desert Estates development zone as PDR. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. So if you look here on your vicinity map, here is River Road right here, and this is the Painted Desert Estates development, 2450 right there. And so it's just that last little area that they had in there that was left out probably 12 years ago because of some floodplain issues which they have resolved. The only thing is they will be required to annex this into the Painted Desert HOA as all of the roads within this are common private roads.
Gotcha. Any questions? Ready for a motion?
Motion to approve Painted Desert Estates Phase 7.
Was that 7 or second, Joe?
It was.
All right, so we have a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is a request to consider a 27-lot residential subdivision final plat called Sequoia Estates Phase 5. Representative is Development Solutions. Property is located at Holly Drive on Marblewood Drive at approximately 3400 East and 3370 South. Zone is R18. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and meets the conditions of preliminary plat. So again, on your vicinity map, there is 3000 East. Here is Crimson Ridge Drive. There's that park property. Anyway, it's to the east and north and south of those two roadways right there.
Questions on this one?
Motion to approve the final plat for Sequoia Estates Phase 5.
We have a motion by Michelle. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to consider approval of a 21-lot residential subdivision final plat called Sequoia Estates Phase 6. Representative is Development Solutions. Property is located at Tan Oak Drive and Marblewood Drive again at 3400 East, 3450 South. Zone is R18. Again, all aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and meets the conditions of preliminary plat. Phase 5 is here, and this phase is just south of that last phase that we just looked at.
Any questions on this one? Right next to the other one. Ready for a motion? Michelle? She's passed like the last few, so. Joe?
I make a motion that we approve the final plat for the 21-lot residential subdivision known as Sequoia Estates Phase 6.
Second.
Motion by Joe, a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries unanimously. 16.
Okay, the next item is a request to consider an amended residential final subdivision plat called Stone Cove Phase 2. Representative is Alan Heward, of owner of Lot 24. Property is located at 2520 East, 1480 South, zone is R110. The purpose of this final plat amendment is to change Note 8, which currently reads walkout basements are only, or lots 24 and 25 are to be built as walkout basements only. And the change is to allow for, let's see, walkout basements as long as they meet, based on a site plan that meets all applicable city standards, including but not limited to grading and setback standards and requirements. So these two lots right here, when this plat was approved, were approved as walkout basements only. This one was built as a walkout. This owner here would like to now build but do a flat slab on grade lot. And so that's why he's requesting a note amendment that this be allowed as long as they can meet grading and setback standards.
Any questions on this one?
Motion to approve the amended final subdivision plat for Stone Cove Phase 2, specifically the Note 8.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is request approval of a preliminary plat for a 19-unit residential subdivision called Red Hawk. Site is located along Dinosaur Crossing Drive just south of 2450 East. Number of units is 19. Density is 15.83 dwelling units an acre. Zone is PDR. General plan shows this is HDR. Applicant is Bach Homes. So this is, well, we can go back here. So here is Dinosaur Crossing Drive, leads up to Riverside right here where we put in the new signal just recently. And so this is right here. This is a possible site they've looked at for that transitional housing, and then the rest of this is that Greyhawk development. So there's their plat. They will be, as approved during the PD, they will need to annex into the Greyhawk Association, which is this development over here. It's the same owners, so as was discussed, so that they would be allowed to use the amenities that are part of the Greyhawk development. And so they will need to do that. They did request, since Planning Commission, normally the setbacks off of a public road, front setback is 25 feet. They have requested to go to a 20-foot setback. The ordinance allows for a reduction in setback in the PD zone as long as there is an increase in the rear. This is an alleyway. Our ordinance only requires a 20-foot alleyway. They have requested to go to 25 feet and increase that width, and then narrow this down to 20 feet on that side.
So that is perfectly reasonable within our ordinance. Is that correct, Sean, as well?
So
Okay.
take 5 feet here and add 5 feet there.
Yes.
Yeah, and fire equipment will be able to utilize the.
They will
have
probably like
adequate
that
space.
more instead. But,
Right.
yeah. They love bigger and better.
Any questions on this? Again, I think it's been, that clarification's been made, so.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Red Hawk.
Second.
I have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is to approve a preliminary plat for a 50-lot residential subdivision called Sentieri Canyon at the Lake. Site is located along proposed Sentieri Vista Drive, which is west of the intersection of Sunbrook and Plantations Drive. Property is 17.17 acres for a density of 2.91 dwelling units an acre. Zone is R110. This is part of the Lakes development. The general plan is LDR, and the representative is Mark Teepin. Developer is requesting lot size averaging on this phase, as there 15 of the 50 lots are less than 10,000 square feet minimum for the R110 zone, with the smallest lot 13, which I believe is this one right here, being the smallest at 9,000 square feet. So if you look here on your vicinity map, just so you can locate yourself, here is Plantations Drive right through here. There is Sunbrook right here. And so it's just west of the Sunbrook Plantations intersection over in that area right there. So these areas here are part of the open, or part of the master plan development for this area. They're open space areas to be left open, and eventually at some point, per the agreement, to be dedicated to the city as native open areas. They have requested here, this is, so this is a higher elevation, these lots here. The green represent walls that they are proposing along the rear of these lots to take up some of the elevation along the edges. So right here, they've requested to grade a little bit into the open space and do a rock cut. They've indicated that this is rock right through here, and so to make these lots work, they would need to do a little bit of rock cutting right through there. And then you can see that they would get into the open area a little bit here. They do have walls along here, but have requested to grade a little bit into that open space area that's to be dedicated to the city. This one right here, actually, I asked them about what would happen to this. They said this would go to the association as it's not part of this open space area that was to be dedicated to the city at a future date. There is no road currently this road does not exist, nor is it dedicated. And so they will need to improve a road from that intersection and build it and dedicate it all the way into the subdivision. So that'll be part of the requirements of this subdivision.
Any questions for Wes on this one? Sentieri, is that how you say it?
Sentieri, I guess.
Ready for a motion?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Sentieri Canyon at the Lakes.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, this last item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for 11-lot residential subdivision called Banded Hills. Site is located along Banded Hills Drive, just east of Copper Cliffs Drive and 3000 East. Property is 8.93 acres for a density of 1.2 dwelling units, and acre zone is R110. The applicant is Development Solutions Group. Anyways, so we've already seen this as a hillside. So basically, they will be required. Banded Hills Drive is constructed now, but it's really just a chip sealed road. I don't know, there's not a lot of chip seal on there. Anyways, they'll be required to bring that up to a city standard through here. We've talked with them, and the city is proposing to come in and do that portion right through there that they're not required to do, so that the road is fully constructed from here all the way up through here and meets the city standard. So they'll be required to do their portion, and then the city is looking at the possibility of finishing the road on that side. It's a 60-foot road, so it'll be 42 feet of pavement. But I think we're going to do 40 feet of pavement because there's a trail. As you recall, the trail comes down. We looked at it last time, and then you have that underpass, and then it comes over here. So there's a trail that will come up to a possible natural park being proposed here, and then the trail could possibly lead up. There's a nice alcove right here. It's open space area. And so there's the possibility of getting that trail all the way up to here where people could come up and use that area. And so we've narrowed down the asphalt from 42 to 40 to allow for the trail to fit within the right-of-way. So we wouldn't have to buy any right-of-way to put that trail in there. And there's future development that could happen up here near the airport. So we kind of need to allow for that to come through this development. And then the other thought was a little wider here so that cars, if they wanted to, could park along this side of the road that remains open space and could utilize some of this area, if they wanted to come up there and park instead of walk up there. So,
Pretty area.
Any questions, council?
Motion to approve the preliminary, plat for Bandit Hills.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Item 20.
Well, I think
So
we
we know about
discussed
this one, don't we?
We've had a little discussion so far.
Yeah.
We had a really good discussion, and I would make a motion to table this and also to set a time where we can meet with those neighbors and make sure they get notified.
So table for 2 weeks or table for?
Table for two?
Table for two. Table for two, we're going to at least need two.
Table for 2 weeks. What if, we'll let them converse for a minute.
Or
Should
a
we just
month?
table it?
Yeah.
As this, for
Let's
this
just table
motion?
it.
Give ourselves a little bit more
Yes.
flexibility to set a time, provide notice, get
Perfect.
people out there and talk, and we'll discuss this with the developer in the meantime, and
But do
I'm
we
sure
still,
he's probably aware.
do we still table it for 2 weeks? Are you suggesting, or are you saying for 4 weeks? Can we do that without a date? Okay.
Motion to table the approval of the donation of the Black Hills Park to Tech Ridge LLC.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And they were very, very nice considering
Yeah.
all of the residents that showed up.
I think we can come to a very good outcome on that.
Is that what you were waiting for in the back? Okay, so
Yeah.
you missed the public comment at the very first, so. Oh, you stayed? You stayed the whole time?
You're a trooper, thank you.
You're a trooper.
Could we perhaps enroll you in some assistance? I already got that. You got that? I got all the contact. I got 3 contact information. Okay. you're
Did
off
you
the
get
hook.
hers? Because she stayed the whole meeting. Get hers.
Just to help get the word out, but it sounds like we've started.
Good.
Well, we appreciate everybody being kind about it, so.
Well, and again, I think, hopefully we expressed, I think our hope is in one of these rare occasions to try to please everyone. But we think we can in this situation with what the developer would like to do, has already really agreed with Matt that he could do, but, flesh out some of the details a little bit more and meet with the public.
Well, it's
with
a
your
good
neighbors.
example of transparency, not only for this particular area, but for the city at large. I think it's a good way
Yeah.
for the city to be looked at.
And will you make sure the little boy comes to the meeting? Because I would love to get his input on the park, because he was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, make sure he's
Riker.
at our
Riker.
yeah, Riker.
Well, there will still be a park for them one way or another.
Yeah.
All right. Adam, anything else?
Nothing from staff. No requests for a closed session.
Okay, council, or Adam, any report items? I meant to mention earlier, but May is Bike Month, remember, always. So any of you that are interested, Mark's got a flyer, and this is, I don't know, it's posted online, and I've got a hard copy here. But next Monday, May 7th, is our, Bike with Pike event. It's at,
You should have personally invited some people in the audience.
I should have, huh? 6 p.m. on Monday at the Confluence Trailhead. We'll start there. We'll have some hot dogs, barbecue, and drinks. And then we'll ride the Mayor's Loop at 6:30. This is, of course, free. And the Mayor's Loop will be open. In fact, I think they paved that last little piece, Ed. You probably see it, and you see it as you go down River Road, that piece going up to the bridge, the new pedestrian bridge.
And actually,
Nice.
the old bridge doesn't look so out of
I
place
agree.
now. It's kind of growing on me.
I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, they placed it, so it's kind of like a little
Yeah, it
entrance.
Well, and I
Yeah.
went
It
this
doesn't look
morning.
so bad.
I went on my way to the thing this morning, the chamber thing. I went and read the plaque. That this was. You remember this
Eagle
was done
Scout program
by
for-
Mayor MacArthur's grandson,
Right.
Rusty's son.
Yeah.
1908, that bridge was constructed, and it was very much agricultural to get wagons and teams across the bridge, the river,
Yeah.
and then if you remember, thank you, and then if you remember the flood end was at '89 when the dam broke.
Yep.
Okay, the New Year's Eve. You did? So that's when that bridge was
We were
washed
stranded
away.
on an island.
Yeah.
Bloomington Hills was an island.
And so that's when it was washed away and it was buried in the silt until when? 2005, when we had the next big flood, and it unearthed this portion and a little bit more. In fact, if you look close, you can see where the rest of it probably is buried. And some maps we were looking at, but they pulled this out, cut it, made it, shorter so that it could, be displayed. And now I think it's really fun and appropriate to have part of this new bridge.
Yeah, and our own Mark Mortensen helped with that Eagle Scout project and that plaque that's been placed on the
And
bridge.
it still looks good.
Yeah.
The way it's sitting now, it almost looks like it fits in.
Yeah, I think so. And we're gonna, Sean, we're gonna want to make sure legal takes a look at it. We'll probably need to put some reflective something on the wood decking where you approach it, just to make sure, or some lighting. I think we talked about, just to make sure that we're covered. That bridge is narrower than our normal bike bridges, but it's wide enough. And again, 2 for 1, right? We got the water, sewer, maybe 3 for 1 underneath it, and we've got the pedestrian bike on top. So that loop should be open now, I think.
And I was just going to say that, remember, we do have some electric bikes, and if you haven't gotten out on those yet, and you want to join us on Monday, they're easy to ride, and they're actually pretty fun.
Just gave away my electric bike and I have to pedal?
Sorry.
Maybe. Unless you buy one before Monday. It's up to you.
There are some sharp edges on that bridge too, Sean, so make sure you, okay.
We
Safe? Acceptable risk?
We do have planned, I believe we'll be giving away helmets. Michelle just reminded me. I think we'll be giving away helmets at this event. So if you don't have one or a bike, the Bicycle Exchange will gladly sell you a bike. Maybe not an e-bike. Sorry, the bicycle, what did I say?
You said exchange.
Collective, yeah. So they will sell you one. If you're poor enough, they might even give you one. But anyway, and I've been told I'm a poor mayor, so maybe I should get one. Anyway, there are other events during the week. Or during the month. It's also Bike to Work Week the next week. I'm going to try to do that. It's hard, but I'm going to try to do that all week. Mark will do it.
Aren't you glad it wasn't yesterday?
I really am. Yes.
I'm working on a little trailer so I can bike to work.
There you go. A longer trailer.
Yeah.
About
6
feet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Digger.
Adam, we expect to see you on the bicycle skills.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
You'll
I'm
do
excited.
it. You'll do it.
Slowly,
Yeah. So, any other reports from council members, or Adam, or Sean? No.
Just
you want to go home?
The dinosaur board met, and I've passed the information on to Shane McAfee as far as the survey for them to be able to get a copy from Rosenberg and Associates, so that they could save some money on that. So that's working out good, and he's keeping track of that.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That was a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Jimmy? Motion carried.